When people think about why equipment failed in the Korean War, they usually point to cold, frozen lubricants, cracked rubber, brittle metals. What is less discussed is that many of the supply failures exposed in Korea were not caused by temperature at all, but by materials that had already proven unreliable in a very different environment a decade earlier. The Pacific jungle. Canvas that rotted, web gear that disintegrated, tents that failed long before combat ever touched them. By 1950, the US military had already learned, sometimes the hard way, that moisture destroys armies quietly. The improvised solution that helped soldiers survive jungle rot in World War II would later shape how militaries thought about durability, fieldcraft, and logistics long after the Pacific fighting ended. This channel is about the details that don't make it into standard campaign histories, but that determined who endured and who didn't. The Pacific theater forced armies to confront an enemy they could not shoot. In places like Guadalcanal, New Guinea, and the Solomons, equipment failure was constant. Canvas tents mildewed within weeks. Packs lost strength as fibers broke down. Standard-issue tarps and tentage were designed for temperate climates, but in the jungle, they trapped moisture instead of shedding it. When equipment failed, improvisation was not optional. Wax-dipped canvas emerged from necessity, not doctrine. Sailors had long treated canvas with waxes and oils to repel water. Outdoorsmen knew that untreated fabric was, well, pretty vulnerable. In the Pacific, soldiers adapted this knowledge using whatever materials were available. Paraffin wax from ration packaging, candle stubs, and industrial supplies was melted and worked into canvas through heat and friction. Sometimes petrolatum or animal fats were added when wax was scarce. This was not about comfort, it was about preventing catastrophic failure. A rotted pack meant losing food. A failed shelter meant exposure. One of the defining characteristics of jungle rot was its subtlety. Equipment often appeared serviceable until it wasn't. Straps parted under load. Seams failed in heavy rain. Wax-dipped canvas changed that equation. It made failure more predictable. Treated gear stiffened slightly, gained weight, and showed wear more visibly. Military medical and logistics reports from the period repeatedly note that non-combat losses, sickness, exposure, equipment failure, outpaced combat casualties in some campaigns. Waxed canvas did not solve all of this, but it addressed one of the root contributors. Because waxing canvas was not an official standard early in the war, it spread through observation and word of mouth. Marines learned from sailors. Army units adapted methods seen in Australian and local practices. This informal diffusion is important. It highlights how adaptation often moves faster horizontally than vertically in wartime. Soldiers on the ground solved problems long before those solutions appeared in manuals. The lag between field innovation and institutional adoption would become a recurring theme in later conflicts, including Korea. After World War II, military planners took a closer look at why equipment failed in extreme environments. The Pacific experience, really pushed research towards synthetic materials, coatings, and treatments designed to resist moisture and biological degradation. Cold weather failures echoed the same patterns seen earlier in the jungle. Materials optimized for one environment often failed in another. The deeper lesson learned first in the Pacific was that adaptability mattered more than specialization. Wax-dipped canvas remained in training literature and survival manuals, not because it was ideal, but because it was achievable anywhere. It required no factory, no resupply chain, and no specialized chemicals. Waxed canvas was heavier, it was stiffer, it could crack in cold weather. These drawbacks were well known, and soldiers accepted them deliberately. What stands out in historical accounts is the clarity with which soldiers evaluated these trade-offs. There was no romanticism about improvisation. It was a calculated response to specific conditions. This pragmatic mindset, adjusting methods based on environment, became a cornerstone of later survival training. Modern audiences sometimes frame such hacks as clever tricks. In reality, they were risk management decisions made under pressure. The story of wax-dipped canvas, really forces a re-evaluation of what actually determines effectiveness in war. Battles are remembered, certainly, but endurance, well, that's built elsewhere. The Pacific Theater, for instance, demonstrated that environmental factors can erode combat power, honestly, even faster than enemy action. This realization, in turn, influenced post-war thinking about logistics as a combat function, rather than just a support role. It also, I think, reshaped how militaries approach training for non-ideal conditions. These insights carried forward into Korea, Vietnam, and beyond, shaping doctrines that emphasized adaptability, redundancy, and field-level problem-solving. Wax-dipped canvas is not, just a relic of a bygone era. It really represents a broader principle. When systems fail, simple and well-understood methods often outperform complex solutions that depend on, supply chains and infrastructure. Natural disasters, prolonged conflicts, and humanitarian crises continue to recreate conditions where this kind of knowledge becomes relevant again. Understanding why this method worked, where it failed, and how it spread offers more than just historical trivia. It actually gives us a framework for thinking about preparedness, one that values durability, adaptability, and local problem-solving over, technological confidence. Remembering these stories matters because they show how survival so often hinges on quiet, uncelebrated decisions made far from command tents and press briefings. If you value this kind of grounded historical analysis, go ahead and subscribe to Echoes of Valor and share this video with others who care about understanding war beyond its most visible moments.